I need you to trust me and Luke Emano because we're novices. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 24. I'm your host, Sammi St. Ledger, and this is Trust Me, I'm a Novice, the podcast about connections. We are talking science, psychology, spirituality, and talking about ourselves. And today we are delving into self. More than that, we are talking about traveling across the globe. Trust Me, I'm a Novice delves a lot into what it's like in your early 20s, when for the first time, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And because of that, a lot of opportunity for moving and travel happens. And when it comes to moving, when it comes to new experiences in general, a lot of different obstacles accompany it. Today, I'm interviewing my dear friend Luke Emano, who is a University of Illinois junior and majoring in information science. And on top of that, he right now is studying abroad in Europe. With that said, let's get right into it. Trust me, trust yourself, trust Luke Emano, and trust the process because we are getting things started. Luke, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Sammi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I went to school with Luke at the University of Illinois, and we go back quite a bit. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today. So to start things off, you're in London right now, but you did begin in Spain. Tell me how you decided to study abroad and kind of how everything came to be.
Yeah, sure. So I think when it comes to studying abroad, for me at least, there are a lot of different reasons. I don't think I can just set one reason as to why I wanted to study abroad. It was just an accumulation of stuff. So, for example, my family, I'd say, is pretty international. My mom's from Poland. My dad is from the Philippines. And within my family, a little bit like extended family, we have people from Spain, from Germany, and a bunch of different places, you know. So I think I've always had some sort of exposure to abroad in general, and I'd say a little bit more towards Europe. And growing up, I never actually left the country. So I'll kind of talk about this later on, but studying abroad was my first time outside the country, and it's kind of, I think, ironic because my parents are immigrants, but I've never actually left the country and seen their homelands or anything like that. And so when I realized that there was an opportunity for me to study abroad, I felt the desire to just go for it because one, I would be able to kind of understand and see how my parents lived abroad, or just how the world is different outside of the US. Two, I think it was a good challenge for me to leave my comfort zone. Three, I chose Spain in particular because I've always had a general interest in the Spanish language, and I really wanted somewhere where I could actually improve that. And Spain, of course, they speak Spanish there, so that was a good reason why to do that. And another slight reason that I wanted to do it as well was, specifically in college too, was because a lot of people that I've talked to who have graduated have said that the number one regret that they have from college is not studying abroad. And I really took that to heart because it's such an integral time. When you're in your early 20s, you don't have to worry about work or the real world, and you're in college, and it's such a unique time to travel and experience abroad. And I think that, although not the main reason, was a huge factor as to why I wanted and ended up studying abroad. So.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and see what you said stood out to me a little bit in the sense of you talked about you felt you kind of just had to go for it. And I've always been fascinated. I think there's a lot of people in life. I talk a lot about self-empowerment on this podcast and doing what you want to do with your life. And I'm always curious, where is kind of the jump, or what's the recipe for something that you really want to do, but then working up the courage to actually do it? Because I feel like a lot of people talk about, oh, I want to do this, but they don't end up doing it. Where did you find that?
I think it took a lot of just talking with myself because I think everyone can relate to this. When you want to do something but you're unsure about it, you start asking yourself all these what if questions, like what if I lose my passport? What if I get lost? What if I can't speak the language? What if I can't do this or that? And at a certain point, you kind of just go down a stream of those, but it's really important to keep yourself from falling into that landslide, because the more you constantly question your ability to decide or make decisions, the harder it's going to be for yourself to actually decide. And for me, I have those questions in my head still, but I really just needed myself to realize that those are all technically hypothetical. They're all in my head. They're all questions that haven't actually happened. And so I think at a certain point, I just said, screw it, fuck it. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse in here or not, but
Oh yeah, you're fine.
but yeah, I just realized that none of that has actually happened yet, and it could all go totally wrong. But imagine how right it could go as well. And so I think holding yourself back from falling into that what if landslide is really important in terms of making that decision, making that jump. So
Definitely, definitely. That's such a good way to put it. I feel like that's definitely like showing you having a really good sense of self-awareness, because I think, like you said, it's so easy to overthink. I am the queen of overthinking, but in reality, what you're overthinking about, like I said, the what ifs, they're not truths. And I think for so long, you sometimes will over-identify with them. People do, and let them control their lives. So that's really neat, because I'm always curious, like I said, as to what like makes you take that jump. So going off of that, so you finally hit that, like you said, that fuck it moment where you were like, all right, we're going to Europe, we're doing it. And you get there. And I guess I'll take a little tangent by first saying, you know this, I've talked about this on the show before. I studied abroad for 12 days in Europe right before the pandemic. And I remember I had a mindset like you. I have this kind of funny thing about me where I'll make myself face fears every little bit. And I think I pretty much was like, I'm just going to go to Europe. I did the abroad program, signed up, did all this stuff, but didn't actually let myself overthink it, which I think in hindsight might not have been like the best, because I didn't actually like, I kind of just expected I'd be fine. But what I didn't expect right when I got there was culture shock. And that initial adjustment, it kind of reminded me of when you first get to college and your parents leave you and you're like, oh my God, wait a second, this is completely new. What's it like? For me, it was super terrifying and I was very anxious, but I'm not sure if it's the same for everybody. So how did it feel when you first got to Europe?
to be honest, it felt just it's so strange because um, so I get off the plane, right? I get a ride to my living accommodation, and then once I get into my room, I sit on I actually unpack first, and then I sit on my bed, and then I was just like, now what? It's kind of a funny idea to think about because I feel a lot of people, and including me at first, I kind of romanticized being abroad and just thinking about, oh, it's going to be like a movie. It's going to be vacation. We're going to be doing this, this, and that right off the bat. But I think in reality, it's a lot different where things are actually really slowed down. And you have to deal with the day-to-day transitions, the day-to-day things that occur. But when I first got there, it just felt super abrupt right when I, got settled, and it was like, now what? What do I do? What do I do next? And so um, that actually caught my attention. I was kind of confused because I was expecting myself so much to be, right off the bat, going to the beach, right off the bat, getting some wine or something to drink because I'm still under 21, so I wasn't able to. I'm not able to drink in the U.S., but I
Hmm.
was super excited to do that. But yeah, my first what happened when I first arrived, that was pretty accurate as to what happened. So
Yeah, I was very surprised because I remember at the time I was with another friend and she had a very similar reaction. And while I will say we were in a suburb, we were off in a place called Klagenfurt, Austria, which is basically, I want to say south of Vienna. But we were in a suburb that was super, had nobody around. So when we first got there, we were like, oh my God, we went to the wrong place. Like we weren't even in a major city. So we thought our experience was kind of unique like that. And then we ended up talking to a ton of other kids at U of I that were in the other programs. And they were like, oh no, first 2 weeks, like you might cry yourself to sleep. Like it's fine. Like it's just like you're going to have those moments. And I think even going past that, that's what's kind of fascinating when I think about being young and the way change happens, where you can make a decision to do something and then it starts to happen. And it's not like you get from point A to point B just instantaneously. It's like you kind of just begin something and then a whole nother set of challenges faces you once again that you now have to work through. So yeah, that's very interesting to see that it kind of paralleled. So what would you say as you were adjusting kind of perhaps got you out of any more negative feelings, or how did you at the beginning get used to your situation?
Yeah, so probably important to note that I actually stayed with a host family. So I wasn't in a dorm or apartment. I actually lived with a family.
Mhm.
Um, they weren't from Spain. They're actually from Argentina, but they moved to Spain. But that's besides the point. It was with being with a host family that brings a whole other story of just awkwardness, of scarcity, just all these different types of emotions that I haven't really experienced before. And um, I think I did have a slight advantage because I come from a multiracial background, because I've just been exposed to people of different languages and just people from abroad in general. So that did help a little bit, but um, kind of combining the question that you just gave me now and the previous one as well. The biggest one I think is just to seek out help, because um, I was in my room, right? I was just like, now what? But I was also kind of afraid to leave my room at the same time, because I was trying to unintentionally avoid interacting with the host family, because they spoke a little bit of English, but not too much, not as fluent as I am, of course. But I was really afraid of facing that awkwardness and facing that those uncomfortable emotions. And so the biggest thing that really helped me was staying in communication with my family, especially. My mom, of course, checked in on me 24/7. So I always had her to talk to, but also my sisters, and also some friends that I had back home. And then I also actually met a person at the airport going to the same program as I. So I was already meeting people before I landed in Spain. But the biggest thing that helped me was just being able to communicate and allow yourself to express the emotions and let them out, versus keeping it in and confining yourself in a closed area, because that will only lead to more struggle, and it'll just build up in the future that will most likely break you down in a harder way than it would have if you would have expressed yourself beforehand. So I think being communicative and expressive with your feelings and emotions were really helpful for me.
Okay, that's such a good way to put it. I think there's something to be said in life when things are like, when they suck for a little bit, even just being like, this sucks, like I'm whatever, I feel lonely, I'm scared, I'm this. Because sometimes when you just put it out there, then it's like, okay, I can identify now like what's going on. And from there I can kind of start seeing steps to make it a better situation to improve what's going on. So okay, that's interesting. And I never really thought about like you said, living with a host family, where at first I'm sure it probably sounds like, oh cool, like this family's gonna take me in. I bet like the mom is gonna end up feeling like kind of one of my moms, and like sort of that would have been my line of thinking, as opposed to then you get there and you're like, okay, so I actually don't know them quite as well. This is going to be yet another adjustment. But that's good that you also took the time to be calling home, calling your actual mother. What did you do about the time difference? Because I remember that was a problem for me, that everyone would be asleep when I would start freaking out.
Yeah, so I think at first the time difference was 8 hours, and then daylight savings occurred, and then it dropped it down to 7.
Yeah.
So I forgot when exactly daylight saving was, maybe March or something, February. I don't know, but um, that was a little bit hard to adjust to at first, because since I'm ahead, I would have to call in the evening times when my parents were just waking up. So, say for example, 8 p.m. Uh, I'm getting ready, or I'm about to have dinner with my host family, and then my parents are still at work because it's in the middle of the day, and so I wouldn't actually be able to contact them or FaceTime with them until midnight. in Spain, and so that kind of sucked because me personally, I like to go to bed really early, and I love my sleep. So uh, the time zone shift was difficult for me as well, just because of the communication, but also even with other things like food, because they eat a lot later in Spain, and
Mhm.
so just really shifting your day-to-day activities and routine to the time zone is it is difficult, but you get through it after a couple of weeks. So
Yeah, you know what's funny? You just brought back like a big memory for me. I remember when we first got to Austria, I was not hungry for I think like 20 hours, like because your body was supposed to be asleep. So my body was like, what the hell? Like we could eat two pretzels and like be kicking the entire day, which
that
wasn't
was not
healthy, but
me.
that was not you.
No, I
Okay.
was, I was, I thought I was gonna die. I was starving. At least for me, because I eat a lot. I mean, I exercise, so I of course
Yeah.
I eat a little bit more. But because normally I eat dinner at like 6:30 in the U.S. and then it jumps to 9 p.m. It's
Yeah.
like that's a whole 3 hours of just not eating, and lunch there is at around 1 or 2. So that's just 7 hours of me not eating, and it killed me. I was so hungry.
Oh my God. It's always like, it's always the stuff you don't think about. Like, you know, in hindsight, you probably weren't even thinking about that before you came. And then you get here, you're like, oh, right, food. I'm still a human
Yeah,
being. My
yeah.
bad. Oh my gosh. Okay, so moving a little bit forward now. So now you begin to adjust. Now you're kind of getting used to living in a different situation. What did you not only learn, but what things started to stand out to you as you started to get used to living in Europe? Like, what changes did you notice, perhaps within yourself? And I guess, what did you just start to learn more and more, even past your studies, or maybe in your studies?
So much. Okay, let's break this down. So I think the biggest thing really is embracing discomfort, and I say that with a lot of confidence and pride because it took me a while to get through to that. And um, kind of this entire conversation is revolving around taking that jump to study abroad and just going abroad in general. And the number one thing I would say everybody does learn is to embrace discomfort more. I would say me a little bit more just because I've been traveling so much. Um, but when you're abroad, and my experience is because I've been traveling around so much, you kind of have to force yourself to deal with situations and situations that you don't even plan arise. For example, I missed a train in Spain one time. I was going to a nearby town up north, and I totally missed it. And so I had to figure out how to either get the next train. Am I going to just cancel the trip altogether? Um, and it's just things that arise, and just learning how to deal with things that rise. How do I phrase this correctly? It's like, how do you deal with things that aren't expected? How do you hold yourself together when things go wrong? And a big part of that is that discomfort part, because a lot of people reflecting back on my friends back home, and just in general myself in the past, I've been so afraid to face discomfort and face change and face things that don't go my way. And we don't really think about it back in the US because everything is so or tailored to us. It's just
Yeah,
everything we have
exactly.
is there. We don't need to know another language. We
Mhm.
don't need to figure out transportation as much, of course, because we have a lot of really convenient ways. Um, we don't need to worry about meeting new people because we're in college, everyone's there, and just a bunch of different things related to that. You have to figure that out on your own abroad, and because of that, it's all discomfort, but you have to face it. And at the end of the day, I reflect, and that's the most proudest thing that I've realized about myself in terms of growth, because I feel as if I can face anything now.
I love that.
And it's so empowering just to know and just to see that change too. It's not about just becoming that, but seeing how you were before and seeing where you are now. And um, discomfort, I think, is number one, top of the list, that you will develop if you go abroad. So
That's awesome that you can say that. I think it's crazy in life how you can go through so much growth in such a brief period of time. And sometimes it comes, not to say out of nowhere because you plan for this, but I always sometimes will look back on myself about a year ago and be like, I feel like I'm completely different now based on anything I went through. And like you said, you can see it in yourself. I can see it in you too. I feel like I've always, like my heart. I feel like there would always be those jokes. I remember when I was at school with kids that came back abroad, and they'd always be like, "Oh, they're all like cultured now," and whatever, like that they'd carry themselves differently. But I actually think it really is a confidence thing that you come back and, like you said, it's like you dealt with so much change, like you said, so much discomfort that forced you to embrace life. And I was always so curious if I would have stayed even, but even past that, how much confidence you really built within yourself. Because for like, I mean, now how long have you been out there? What, 3.5 months?
Actually, this is gonna be my fifth month.
Oh, obviously I'm paying great attention to your Instagram, but
Thanks so much, Sammy.
anytime. Oh my gosh. But even past that, yeah. So how much confidence you're building in all those months, because it's the initial panic, but then adjusting, and then like anything in life, it's like the more you do it, the more you do it. So you start to really build that capacity, tolerance, and space for anything that comes your way. And that's really exciting to me to hear that now you feel like you could embrace anything in life. And do you feel like past that, has it made you a lot more open to different types of experiences? How do you think it's going to impact your future moving forward?
Oh man. Yes, it has definitely opened me up to just doing weird things. So actually, a great example of this is so last week I was in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and housing there is super expensive. So hotels. Do you know hostels? What hostels are?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
youth
yeah,
hostels. Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
guess for anybody that doesn't know, quick little tangent for anyone listening. Youth hostel is basically just somewhere that you stay in with a ton of different, like usually like teenagers to young adults, and you have like you're usually in a room of people with a ton of different bunk beds, and it's kind of like a massive sleepover every night. So
it's a college dorm, pretty
it's
much.
it's a college dorm.
Yeah, but anyway, so in the Netherlands, those are really expensive. So it was about 50 euros a night. That's like 55 to $60 US dollars. But that was really expensive. But I figured out this other way of getting really cheap housing. It's called couch surfing. So I don't know if you've heard of this, but couch
It
surfing,
improves.
yeah, it's an app where you can actually reach out to locals,
Oh,
and
oh my God.
yeah, and so they'll actually, depending on the right situations, of course, but you could actually stay on someone's couch for free.
Oh, wow.
At some random person's house who's a local at the location that you're staying at. And I ended up meeting or reaching out to a guy who was willing to let me stay on his couch, and that was one of the craziest experiences for me in terms of just being open to weird stuff because
Mhm.
it was not like a hotel or even a hostel. It was literally, he was a 22-year-old guy who lived in a studio apartment or studio room, um, and everything was a mess. It was like the messiest traditional college dorm room that you would ever see. Everything was all over the place. He didn't have a bed frame. He was literally sleeping on the floor and stuff, but he had a couch. And
No bed frame, red flag.
no, of course, yeah,
No, I'm just
um,
kidding.
but I stayed there for 2 nights. I stayed on his
Okay.
couch in in his really messy room, but I had a blast the entire time. And one, of course, it was free, but just because I was able to reach out to someone, they offered a place to stay, and I'm staying there for free, and I'm able to meet someone and just have conversation. And so that sounds very suspicious, the way I explain it a little bit, but that's just an example of what I mean when it comes to doing weird things abroad and um, finding that discomfort and facing it. Because who knows, you won't have 50 euros to spend a night in a really popular city, and you might have to couch surf, but you end up fully embracing it and you just go with it, and it's a great experience, and I had a blast with it. But yeah, that just another example of how I'd be open to strange and new opportunities and experiences.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I can't even imagine. That's the funny thing too, because it's like, and obviously, the norms that are in the US, like I can't imagine, not to say I can't imagine it, because like everyone within reason stays on their friends' couches in the US from time to time. But yeah, that in Europe, there's just a whole new set of different cultural norms, but also just like possibilities and things like that, that like you said, you'd never even think about. But given the opportunity, you're like, well, I guess we're going to send it. So then you ended up having an awesome time. So, okay, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that story. Trailing it back a little bit more now, one thing that I was always curious about too when it came to studying abroad is kind of the principle that you're often by yourself a lot. And some people like to be by themselves. I actually like love it. I'm low key introverted for how extroverted I seem. But at the same time, if you're not necessarily a little more used to being on your own, it's its own experience. And I think even past that, like something I always thought about was that I always think I go through the most growth in life when I'm, for instance, not in a relationship. And I remember back in the day, I ended up, obviously, because of the pandemic, not staying in Europe. But looking back at the time I was in a relationship, and now I'm thinking, like, that was such a stupid idea. Like, in hindsight, I'm like, because at the same time, it's like your mental space, you're in a brand new space, brand new opportunities, but you're thinking about somebody else from time to time instead of just yourself. And I guess going past that, I don't know if you would care to comment on that, or what would you say about just the importance of being on your own and getting used to being by yourself, and what type of value that's added to your life?
Yeah, of course. So, me, I've never been in a relationship.
Mm,
Um, and I know, even though I've been single, I understand the consequences and just the things that come with a relationship,
mm,
when it comes to your own life as well, not just the other person's life. But um, being abroad and just kind of relating to what I've mentioned a little bit before is you're kind of stuck with yourself, um,
yeah,
in the sense that, like, when I was in my own room, hiding from my host family, I was just by myself. It was something that it was a feeling that I was feeling internally that no one else could feel.
mm,
Um, and I was in a disclosed place, and I was just there by myself. And that was the first day I was abroad, and that just continued to happen. Not the room in particular, but just being on your own,
yeah,
and being confined with your own thoughts and your own emotions and feelings. That never leaves. And I think because I was single, or I am single, it's hard and easy because you don't have that other person to confine towards when you're down or something like that. But
yeah,
also that being in a relationship does kind of restrain the amount of growth that you go through because you're anchored in a way
yeah.
to
The way to put it.
someone who is across the globe from you,
Mm,
um, and it doesn't allow you to truly worry about yourself because you have that small little bit of worrying about another person.
mm,
And when it comes to growth, you need to fully focus on yourself.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and not saying that you can't grow with another person, of course, but it's in terms of your own identity and your own goals and your own morals and beliefs and just the way you see yourself in life and the world around you. You really need to take a step back from everything and just let yourself be in your own space, in your own thoughts, in your own feelings and emotions, because that's never going to leave and it's going to haunt you if you push it away.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I know I always think about, like it's such a good place to quote unquote find yourself, as cheesy as it sounds, but really, yeah, it's true. I mean, you're by yourself for months on end, seeing new things, having new experiences. And I think, like you said, you never want to look back and regret, like, I was tied to this, I was anchored to this, or I had something preventing me from really reaching that full potential of whether it's growth, whether it's learning, whether it's anything of that nature. But that's so neat. Oh my gosh. Okay, I guess we're already probably coming to more of a wrap, but what I would say is, what would be like the best thing you've experienced so far, or anything you want to close on, or anything you want to add?
Yeah, I will share a really awesome experience that I did recently. And that was me traveling to Norway, actually. So what I did, I went to Norway for 3 days and I rented a car and I drove 3 hours to hike a mountain. And that was something that I was absolutely terrified to do. And the reason being because one, I've never been to Norway. Two, I've never rented a car before. Three, I've never hiked a mountain this crazy before. And so I was literally three huge things that I've never done in my life I was doing in 3 days. And that's a lot of pressure to carry on your back.
Yeah.
But when looking back on that, it's just, you know, and that's just one example of of many other things that I've done. But kind of to put a point to that, I really think that you, and I'm just not speaking to you specifically, but just whoever's watching or listening, that you need to travel on your own. You need to do a solo trip. And the reason why I say that is because all the things that we've been talking about today, all of those come into play. But as scary as it is, you come out so unbounded and so strong about yourself, your identity, what you want to do moving forward, your beliefs in the world, and everything else that you could think of when it comes to personal growth. You find it when you solo travel. And if you really push yourself, if you really do crazy shit, like going to Norway and renting a car and hiking a mountain, I guarantee you that you will come from the other side feeling so empowered and feeling that the rest of the world is easy, absolutely easy. And that will help you not only in your personal development, but your professional development, your emotional development, your social development, your relationships with other people. It all just gets so much easier once you put yourself in those positions. So I really, really suggest that you should solo travel, even if it's just for a week, or just do gradual trips. You just need to get out there, do it yourself, meet new people, and just embrace discomfort.
All right. Oh my God. Amen to that. Wow. Okay, Luke. Well, first off, I think this was fantastic today. This is everything that I was hoping from this conversation. And I'm so excited for anybody that is watching. This is the first time me and Luke have actually looked at each other in 5 months. Then, if you've been gone that long, I don't even know the last time I saw you because I graduated. But so I'm so glad we got to have this live and actually kind of let people see like, oh, just how you've been doing and how everything's been. So with that being said, Luke, where can people follow you on social media?
So I am on Instagram, Luke Emano. Pretty easy to find me. I'm on Facebook too, but that's pretty much it. I'd say I post a lot on my story and my my Instagram of my travels. So if you want to get an example of what I've been experiencing, that's a good way to do it. But yeah.
All right. Well, perfect. And as I say this constantly, I plug it, but feel free to follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok now at Trust Me, I'm a Novice. And you can follow my personal TikTok, Sammi_Saint. But besides that, Luke, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so excited to go back and edit this, and I think it was a great job. So with that said, I am Sammi St. Ledger. This is Trust Me, I'm a Novice. Luke, do you have anything to add?
I'm a novice. You see me talking and acting all professional and smart and all this stuff, but I'm still learning. You learn so much, but you continue to learn. So I'm a novice. I'm Luke Emano, and trust me, I'm a novice.
Yes! Oh my God, perfect.
Mic drop.
Mic drop, literally.